All right, so here we are. We keep continuing, and we're in the bar right now. We're having not the mandala, so let's go check what's going on here with this right angle cross of tension in the 3-5 profile. Incomunicado. When that line came out, I remember thinking, why don't I change this? This was really shit. I don't want to be incommunicado. I want to know my depth, symbolized by the no moon phase, where the potential of light is unrecognized, unavailable, and unknowable. The referring value is in the transference of such a state which can give strength to those that affect it. With the development of taste and depth in a long term process, the profound anxiety when a profound intelligence is forgotten in the wilderness. I know that place. The tendency in a long term process, development of taste and depth, so anxiety. It's just something to see about the nature of the third and the fourth line. That both the third and the fourth line are about a recognition that despite the fact that the depth is there, the connection to the depth and the understanding of the depth is a process, and that well is constantly filling, that the potential to take in is enormous, but there's no value in the moment. When I look back at my life, prior to my disappearance in Ibiza, and coming here to Ibiza, I had gone through three wives, maybe seven careers in a very, very short period of time. I'd taken in an enormous amount of information, both in the classical sense and in the professional sense and in the private sense. And for all of that potential that I had, whether it was my intelligence, my talent, my creativity, my performance ability, and on and on and on, I was a lost being. A lost being that assumed that nothing had been gained by all that experience. I had no access to my depth. I had no idea that there was a synthesis going on. I had no idea that there was incommunicado. One of the things about the well is that the 48 gate is deeply connected to Uranus. That you'll notice not a single line here has Uranus mentioned, but this is very much Uranian. It's Uranian in the sense of the way in which the lifespan works. It's almost like the cover is on the well until your midlife. It's very Uranian in that sense. The other thing is that unlike the 18, that it's very specific in the identification of correction. That the 48, because it's a natural synthetic field, actually produces a totally different solution. You cannot go elective from the 18 to the 46. You are, after all, going to go through the spleen. It's not like they're harmonics. There's something that's going on in this process. The 3-5 incommunicado is somewhere that really does feel useless. These can be very, very unhappy people, very, very unhappy people. After all, you don't ever have to recognize depth to understand why you're provoking people. And they're reacting to you on this cross of tension. You don't even realize that each provocation that leads to problems, failure, the 3-5 typical crash test, that every angle of those things is actually adding up to an enormous intelligence potential. One of the themes of the 3-5 is that the 3-5 is correct. That is, let's say we start them off as a children and we raise them correctly. If the 3-5 is correct, actually they will have very few actual mistakes in the process, very few mistakes, and will not be paranoid. Only the not self 5 is truly paranoid. The true self 5 is cautious because they know they cannot satisfy all demands. They cannot satisfy all projections, and they know it's dangerous to give the impression they can. And that is a caution, not a paranoia. But when you're dealing with the not self, you're dealing with a not self 3-5 cross of tension, 48 gate. They drive their partners crazy. Bonds made and broken, bringing all the three. The partner who has fallen in love with a 5, only to discover it's a 3, and all the stuff that goes with that. That line is wonderful. 3-5 run away. At some point, the 3-5 just takes off. And they take off so they can start again with a clean slate. And one of the most fascinating things about 3-5 is that in many ways they are real prodigals. They are the ones that run away. They leave their village, their profits, whatever. They may leave their country, and they could have leave the planet. Maybe some of them do. But the fact is that they go somewhere else, and then many, many years later, after the it takes about 20 years to come back. All of that process that's been bubbling and boiling inside suddenly can make not such much sense, but suddenly it can display its depth. When I was about 10 years old, I had bought a new little notebook for drawing. I like to draw. I love to draw. As a kid, particularly, and I decided I was going to write a book, and I was going to write a book about everything. I was going to create a planet, and I was going to describe how everything worked on the planet. And then I realized that I actually had the depth, but I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know how to describe it because I've never experienced the depth that was already there. The whole thing about the 46 is that you're adequate, but when you go through life, you don't realize how adequate you really are. And the longer you are in the life process, the more adequacy you recognize. Many years later, I would write a book about a planet and describe how everything works. It's absolutely amazing. I still think back to that moment. It's something that comes to every once in a while. It was like the God saying to me, "You do have the depth for this. Wait, you'll see. What you're going to let your in now, you're not equipped. You have to go through the patterns. Yeah, one thing we know about logic. The one thing I expect about logic is that logic is willing to say that this is theory until proven. You are adequate until proven inadequate. This is really the logic. You're innocent until proven guilty. Then we go to the 3-6. In duality again, 3-6 tend to be very stable in terms of relationship. One of the things about incommunicado that is very interesting is that if the relationship lasts long enough, solutions may emerge, and it's something really to see. Again, I relate to my own personal experience, having both my 48s activated by Neptune, having been somebody who went through a number of relationships. If I look back with any kind of structured objectivity, I can see that basically I dealt with the same problems over and over again, and I did not deal with them successfully, most of which had to do with the nature of my not self related to my open solar plex, so that I was somebody that avoided confrontation and truth. I really did not participate properly in those relationships. I didn't know any better. What I discovered is that so many things that brought me to a point of relationship collapsed in my not self are things that are not any more than nuance to my true self. In other words, that over time, and this again is the advantage of understanding the depth process, that over time solutions can emerge. And so one of the things about the 3-6 in this particular configuration is that there's something inside the 3-6. And it's basically the six. It's basically the underlying theme of hopefulness. And an underlying theme of hopefulness is the possibility that at any time or the other the process can be perfected. Taste is something very important to grasp because it's one of the things that has to do with the nature of morality. If you want to know where morality comes from, and unfortunately it's really sad, morality comes from individuality and comes from the 4323. It's the only place where you find an emphasis on morality itself. The business of taste, where we're much more comfortable with the instinct and intuition as ways of understanding intelligence. Logical intelligence, dedicative intelligence is something that we understand, sort of this collective logical intelligence. But where I really want to grasp is a taste. Remember that the 18th gate is the gate of salt, and everything about the nature of logic is that logic will give you a good taste or a bad taste. This is logic. It's on off. It's the basic binary. It's the way that we program for computer. It's all this stuff. And all this is about the taste. That is a good taste or it's a bad taste. This is not morality. This is not a judgment that something is bad universally. It's taste. For example, I'm not a moralist. I'm a dualist. I accept that in the not self clearly and in the very fixture of that is to be the human that we are so much lovers as killers. And from that perspective, I cannot make a judgment that states that killing is bad and loving is good. I could just simply see that there are two things that are basically polarities, and there is a moral perspective possible because of all of them conditions that have made it morally feasible. It's like people say, no, I wouldn't kill. So you would create a situation where you know damn well that 99% of them would kill. But taste is different. Taste is morality. It's different. It's preference. It's not morality. It's a very, very fine line. It's different, but it's very important difference. I don't have a taste for killing. It's not my taste. I don't think of it being attractive. It's not my taste. I'm not supposed to it in terms of morality, but in terms of taste, I don't know why the murder in mind. It's not my taste. And one of the things we have to see about the way in which relationships work at the logical level, it's about taste. It's just about taste. Theirs to your taste or they're not to your taste. And it's refining in this taste. Maybe you need to add a little salt, make it a little tastier. And the whole thing about the perfection of a relationship is ending that tastiness. So it has to taste good. So is it tasting any good? Let me know.